Dee dum ba dee da dee dum ba dee da dee da dee dum ba dee 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 dum ba dee 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 dum ba dee 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 dum ba dee dee ay ay oh my oh wa dee dum bum ba ay 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 dee dum bum bum dee ay 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 Didida hey yam badam didida yada didum badidadum. Purim's not over. If you're living in Jerusalem, at least it's Shusham Purim. And even if you're not in Jerusalem, Shusham Purim is still celebrated everywhere. So we still have to be in the spirit of Purim, everything of Purim. The message of Purim becomes even stronger. We had an amazing Purim party over here. It was wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. And if I bring in afterwards, it lasted late at night to the morning. No, well, to the strike of midnight at least, and beyond. Yes, we celebrated. Welcome to Tanya today. I'm Rabbi Ronnie Fine, coming to you from Chabad, Zich and Kadesh from Montreal, Canada. It's a privilege and a pleasure to share with you the Tanya and to share it with so many of you. Michael, all the way in Germany. Guten Tag, good afternoon, welcome. John, who is with us in North Carolina, shalom. Rachamim in Houston, Texas, who's become our regular now. Welcome. Beautiful. And who else is joining us today? It's Jackie also. In Charlotte, North Carolina, welcome. We have with us Geula. Oh. In Tzfas, in the holy city of Tzfas. Beautiful. Thank you for joining. Rabbi is with us in Morocco. Sandy in Michigan. Who else is joining us today? Erica is in Norway. Welcome. Suzanne in Miami. Clem in Brisbane. Feeling better today. Beautiful. Should only be good. Omak is in California joining us. Jeff is in Michigan, back home. Daphne is in South Carolina joining us. Whoops. And a wonderful Wednesday. Deborah in Kitchener, Ontario. Celeste, Chava is in Boulder, Colorado. Who else is here? Tim in Texas. Rena is in Colorado. Boker Tov. Liba and Davida, twin sisters all the way in New York. Welcome. Jane is joining us in Singapore. All right. Elise is in West Virginia. Welcome back live. Simcha is in Florida joining us. Diane in Arizona. We've got with us on Instagram, Akoy in Peru. We have Yeli. We have Matik, Jennifer, Rachel in South Carolina. Jennifer is joining us in Minneapolis. Talaventa is joining us. We have Clubhouse, Machia, Vilma, Celeste, Marcy, Michael, Ashley, Beautiful. AJ is with us. Eugenia in Calgary. Yep, I think we got everybody. Beautiful. Can you entertain two opposite feelings at the same time? Feelings of joy, feelings of a humbled spirit, which is not a joyful feeling. Two opposite feelings. Is that a healthy thing? Is that a required thing based on Torah teachings? And furthermore, if you do some good during the day, that's wonderful. But what's with the rest of the day? We're learning right now, doing a mitzvah, but our day's not full of a mitzvah. I mean, of course, we go do other mitzvahs, not just learning, whether it's being charitable, whether it's prayer, whether it's doing good for another, whether it's putting on your tefillin, whatever. But we're not constantly engaged. So what does it mean in the other times? How do we view that? So we know from previous discussion that we are a host to the Almighty. We host Him. How? By making ourselves a sanctuary for Him. When we do a mitzvah, like learning Torah right now, that awareness that we host God in us, of us, through us, brings great joy. As would bring great joy to a person who recognizes, or who the king is coming to their town, and he's going to be dwelling hosted by this simple commoner. Wow. That brings great joy. What a merit. What an honor. What a privilege. So for the King of Kings, God Almighty, we host Him right now in our learning. So the thought of that should bring us to joy. Now, that's even if you just do the minimal amount of Torah study, once in the morning, once in the evening, for even a short time, if that's all you're capable of. But of course, the more a person can devote themselves in that manner, the more you resolve to become available for God, to devote yourself to study Torah, right? With that intention, a good intention, it's considered like you studied the entire day, even though you weren't able to, because you got to go make a living, you got to do other things, and so on and so forth. That's great. So even during the remainder of the day, when you're engaged in business, you also become a sanctuary, an abode for God. How? I'm not learning now. Well, because you're giving charity out of the proceeds of your labor, your efforts. Right? You went to work. You're not studying. Yeah, but from that work, now you're giving. You're giving charity. And charity is one of God's attributes. And as our sages teach us, we need to emulate the ways of God. He is compassionate, so must we be compassionate. As the Zohar explains it mystically, kindness is, in a figure of speech, the right arm of God. So too, we need to have the right arm, meaning extend. What's the idea of course, an arm? The arm is to extend to reach out to another, to give to another. That's what God does with his right arm. He's got the real right arm. He just doesn't have a limited one like I do that can only reach so far. He can reach very far. He's got the real arm. And I need to emulate that to reach also to another. Now, even though in reaching out to another and giving monetarily, tzedakah, charity, a person only has to give and should not give more than a fifth. Well, on regular circumstance, I mean, you could give more than that, right? But that means the fifth that I give, or minimally a 10% that we give of our net earnings, we become an abode for God. Just as we're an abode for God now, we're a sanctuary for God by learning Torah. Likewise, when we give charity, we're also an abode. So it's not just now. We can have throughout the day, but then that's good for the 20% or whatever amount that we're giving. Well, what's with the other 80%? The 4/5 that you're not giving. So yet that 4/5 also gets elevated. We'll see how so. Because charity, tzedakah, is the equivalent of all the offerings that you would give on the altar in the times of the Holy Temple. Which those offerings are, of course, for that person's atonement, that person's closeness to God. But being charitable is even greater. Now, we see something interesting when it brings to offerings. It says by an offering, a sacrifice of a living creature, you elevate that animal, not just that animal, but the whole animal kingdom. And likewise, when you bring a meal offering, for example, on the altar, which is made from plants, you elevate all the plant life, even though you're just bringing one offering. In other words, when you take something in the material world and use it towards God, even though it's only a portion of the material world, it affects the rest of the material world. So in a similar manner, the 1/5 that a person would give to charity, that affects the 4/5 that you keep for yourself. That you keep for yourself. In other words, it elevates it too. And even furthermore so, that 4/5 that you use for yourself, that what did you do with it? Well, you bought some food. You bought some drink. All right? You brought other things that are of need in your life. What does that mean? It means the food and the drink and the clothing and whatever else that you need personally in your life. Well, all of that just enables you to do what? The mitzvah of learning now, or giving charity, or praying, or whatever mitzvah that you would be engaged in. So that means the time that you spent to earn the profits, and you used not for charitable purposes for the mitzvah, right? But you used for yourself. Well, if ultimately you use it for yourself in order that you could do the mitzvah, so that 4/5 also becomes an abode for godliness. Later on, when you study Torah, you pray and do a mitzvah, which is very powerful. What an empowerment. That I am an abode, a sanctuary. I am allowing God to dwell in me, through me. Not just when I'm doing the mitzvah, but all those things of earning a living that now allows me to have things in my life that those things then enable me to then do the mitzvah. So it too becomes elevated, uplifted. Just like the offerings elevate all of the plant and animal kingdom, so likewise the mitzvah that we do elevates, and the charity that we give elevates the 4/5 that's used for myself. Now, when we recognize that, what should that do for us? When we ponder the thought, meditate on it even, that brings joy. It means like my day is full of ways and means that I'm an abode, I'm a dwelling, I'm a sanctuary for the divine, for the King of Kings. If a simple commoner appreciates and is excited about the king coming to stay over in his home, all the more so we will be excited that we create the opportunity for God, the King of Kings, the divine, to dwell in me, my sanctuary, my being. That's great joy. To conclude this section of Tanya, which we're concluding now, chapter 34, to conclude this notion that we started in chapter 26 through 34, the third, well, I should say actually, let's just briefly, chapters 1 through 8, identifying who we are, godly soul, animal soul, who's on first and what's on second. Chapters 9 through 17, understanding how the mind has dominion over the heart, and through the mind what we can accomplish in the love and awe of God. Third part, 18 through 25, where we understood that we have the hidden love that defines the Jewish soul, actually, the Jewish soul, that defines us as a Jew, and also gives us a capacity that we don't have to create the love and awe of God, but it's part and parcel of the divine soul that we just need to recognize and expose. That was the end of chapter 25. Then 26 through 34 that we're concluding today is that there is an element in our lives called a curveball that comes, that kind of throws us off kilter, that makes it a little difficult to access the real me, the real capacity that I have of the mind dominion over the heart, because there's things that bring us down. And we don't have joy. Because without joy, it's hard to access who and what we are. So we've been dealing with that in all of these chapters, how to maintain joy, create joy, develop it into various levels, owning your stuff, first point, identifying yourself as a divine person rather than an animal soul person. If you recall, in that identification, that we have the capacity to extricate the divine soul in us from its imprisonment. So it's one thing to identify, another to be able to recognize that we can extricate, we can release our divine soul from its imprisonment. Then there was even a greater joy and that is that not only are we releasing our divine soul from imprisonment, but the captor of us, which is our body and animal soul, it too can, turn the captor into a godly vehicle, that the animal soul and body are also engaged in the mitzvah and also can be elevated and be part of the divine. And now that we can not only extricate our soul and the animal soul is up, but we are hosting the divine. That's in brief what we just went through. But to conclude, says the Alter Rebbe, the truth is, the joy that we must have, also can be at the very same time the opposite emotion. The opposite emotion? A humbled spirit, a broken heart. How do you have joy and a humbled spirit, a broken heart at the same time? Is because in the end we do have two components in our lives. The divine soul that we need to be full of joy, as we've just explained. And at the same time, we do have an animal soul and a body that has its own agenda, as we're not righteous. And therefore, to have a contrite heart, a broken heart, a humbled spirit, at the very same time, as a result of that other element in my life. And the two can dwell together simultaneously because they're two different aspects of my being. Divine soul, complete joy. The animal soul body, a humbled spirit, a contrite heart. And this is what the Zohar says, that Rabbi Elazar, when he heard from his father, Rav Shimon Bar Yochai, the Rashbi, a very deep esoteric explanation about the destruction of the temple, it led to two feelings. One of ecstatic, such a deep understanding of the Holy Temple and its destruction. But the deeper that understanding brought him, the more pain it brought in being aware of its destruction. Two feelings at the same time. So likewise, we can entertain two feelings at the same time. It's a paradox, but as all truths come in a paradox. And that's what we can have. And the truth is, this kind of brings out how we rise beyond the human condition. The human condition will dictate one feeling at a time. I can have one feeling now, I can have another feeling moments from now. But both at the same time, it's already a challenge, a difficulty. That's already a challenge and a difficulty. With this understanding, we get that, I have the capacity of having two opposites. That's truly rising beyond the human condition and being a divine individual. All right, any questions, any comments? You have a question? Two question marks before, so I can notice that it's a question. Thank you, Chava. Is being hopeful being a part of being joyful? It's the opposite. Yes, it's a part of being joyful. If you're joyful, you will be hopeful. If you're not joyful, of course, If you're joyful, truly the way we've expressed and learned it, then of course you're going to be hopeful because God is good. Yes, very good. Is it because how we feel about being in exile? Is this the paradox? I'm not certain. What you mean? Excuse me. What you mean by that, Davida? We want to be out of exile. I'm not certain what other feeling we want to have. So explain that, please. Jeff, you missed part of the percentage of going to tzedakah. I know that I should always be more than comfortable with, right? We wrote down different percentages. So when going to work and giving essentially more, as a recently retired individual, I'm allocating my time to learning, studying, and giving, working through as many ways to stretch myself as possible. So first of all, the minimum is 10% of your net earnings to tzedakah. Till 20% is a general rule. We'll learn more about that in the third part of Tanya. Later on. So the point over here was that even if you're only giving 20%, it's quite a lot, obviously, is that you're elevating the other 4/5, because the other 4/5 are enabling you, giving you the strength and the capability, and you're doing it ultimately so you can do the mitzvah, right? If someone goes to work so they could make money purely, so they could just live a more comfortable life, then that's not what we're talking about. Someone goes to work in order that they make so they can do the mitzvahs of life. That's a different story, right? That doesn't mean you're not using for yourself. Yes, 4/5 you're using for yourself, right? So that's not the issue. The issue is, that intent, I guess. Thank you, Jeff. I don't. Big. I don't know if that's the way to call you. But please join us. All right, folks. All right, thank you, Jeff. Oh, Jennifer has a question on Instagram. I'm sorry, I didn't see. Okay, the word tzedakah also used for volunteering our time and talents, or is tzedakah only used when we talk about giving money? Good question, Jennifer. So the tzedakah comes from the word tzedek, which means righteousness, an act of righteousness, right? And the righteous thing to do is to give of our money, also to give of our time. So primarily, tzedakah, when we speak about, is about giving money and not giving time. But it also is a reference to, and that's more not tzedakah, it's more chesed, acts of loving kindness. So that the term would be more, acts of loving kindness, chesed. So I'm sure that's, I don't know how to call you otherwise, but please share with us.
Shalom, I hope you had a wonderful and freilich Torah.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you. Yes, I hope you too.
Thank you. It was wonderful. We had some Bachers come up from New Haven, and they did a few Megillah readings for the latecomers and the stragglers. And they really helped raise the celebration level.
Oh, beautiful. Bachrim always do that. It's always good to have yeshiva students come and join the celebration because they're full of energy, full of life. Yes, thank you. Beautiful. All right, thank you for sharing. So David is saying, shouldn't being in exile bring a negative state to push us forward to a joyous coming of Mashiach? Yeah, I guess you could say that. Yes, absolutely. All right, folks, amazing. It's beautiful, as always. All right, a reminder, tomorrow is TRC, 4:30 in the afternoon. And a reminder that Rambam is coming up. And a reminder that today is Shushan Purim. And that tomorrow we start a new section in Tanya, starting chapter 35. It'll be we just finished the 4th section. We're going to get into the 5th section. All right, beautiful. I'm Rabbi Ronnie Fine, coming to you from Chabad Zurich in Kadesh, Montreal, Canada, where it's a privilege and a great pleasure to share with you the Tanya. Have an amazing day, an amazing Shushan Purim, Soll sein Freilich. All the best, folks. Be well.